Episode 24, Weathering the Storms of Life. Welcome to Reviving Your Soul, where Christians are finding the courage to embrace their faith in all aspects of their lives so they can stop being bored or overwhelmed and begin to live the life in fulfillment and in peace that God created them for. I'm your host, Vanna Johnson. Let's get started. I don't remember anything about that night. I'd heard stories about it, and I've seen pictures, but since I was only 11 months old that night the tornado destroyed the trailer house that we were living in, I can only go by what others have told me and the conclusions that I have been able to draw about being there. I can't imagine what it must have been like for my parents. Laying in bed as the wind came up, my 2-year-old brother crawling in with them because it was so frightening, and then to have the whole house be picked up and drop in a heap must have been like being on the worst carnival ride in the world. Although I assume it was over very quickly, it must have felt like it was in slow motion. And then that roller coaster ride from hell was over. I envisioned the rain making it even more difficult to first dig their way out from under the walls and then to search for their missing baby. Did I cry out to them right away and have my cries drowned out by the wind? Or was I unconscious and therefore unable to cry? What could have been running through my mind as that little baby as I waited for my rescue? That clearly was the worst storm of my life, and although I don't remember it, it has had lasting effects on who I've become in my life. I've had other storms, though, but none have been as dramatic as that one. We all weather storms in life, don't we? Most are more like my recent health situation. It got me really thinking about how scary that could have been, and how blessed I am that I was grounded in my faith and felt very much at peace with whatever came about. I knew that it was all going to work out, and if it didn't, that was going to be okay too. Of course, not everyone has that peace of mind through the storms in their life. Without being grounded, there can be a lot of stress, anxiety, fear, and even hopelessness. It got me to thinking about the parallels between the many varieties of natural storms and then the storms that we experience in our lifetimes. There are the rainstorms that vary in intensity from a slow drizzle that just dampens our spirits, but doesn't really seem to cause any damage. These can equate to that sense of something isn't right in our lives, but we can't quite put our finger on it, so we just ignore it. It could be that knot in our stomach on Sunday evening knowing that you have to go to work in the morning and just really dreading it. Or that tightening in your shoulders when something isn't right, but you don't even notice it until something changes, and then suddenly you feel like the weight of the world has been lifted from your shoulders. Or it could be that nagging feeling that you really need to lose a few pounds or start hitting the gym again, but you just never seem to get around to it. It's always just below the surface, reminding us that it's time to do something, but we just don't. Or maybe it's that knowing that you need to reconnect with God and start going to church, but you just aren't sure how to even do that. And since it's easier to keep not doing it, you don't do it. Next, there is that steady stream or intermittent rain that keeps you from doing your routine. The real life equal to this storm can stem from hurt feelings or a damaged relationship that has been around so long you don't even pay attention to it anymore, but you know that it's there. Whether it's that family member or friend that you had a spat with, and now it's been so long you don't even know how to reach out. Or maybe it's the 10 or 15 pounds you meant to lose a few years ago that's now increased to 20 or 30 pounds. And now it's time to go shopping again because none of your clothes fit. After a while, you can become so disillusioned that you can't even function properly anymore. Oftentimes we ignore it so long that it's almost impossible to know how to fix it. And even if we do know how to fix it, we're often embarrassed to talk about it, and because the situation feels so out of hand. Then there's that hard rain that, although not dangerous, can create puddles and potholes that are a nuisance, and if it goes on long enough, can even wash gullies that cause major upheavals in life. Truly, if it rains long enough and hard enough, it causes flooding and possibly irreparable harm. Those storms are like the job that overwhelms us, or maybe underwhelms us. Either way, we aren't happy and it causes stress in our lives. Or is it that constant bickering and nagging that we deal with in our relationships that escalate into all-out fighting or may turn into total silence? Every word that is either given or received erodes the relationship further, and soon the crevice is so large that it feels the gap could never be reached. If it's not a relationship issue, maybe it's that weight issue again, and it's gotten so out of hand that you can't play with your children or grandchildren anymore, and you start avoiding the things that you really enjoy in life. It's just too hard. It's hard to plan, it's hard to prepare and carry out the way you might have used to do it, and it's just, it doesn't even seem like something worth trying anymore. You've tried and tried through the years, and you're just discouraged. After a period of time, you begin to have headaches, digestive issues, allergies, or other manifestations of life and stress and overwhelm. Other storms, like a blizzard or a sandstorm, make it hard to see the path in front of us and can cause us to be stranded for hours or even days. These storms in our lives are the hardest to identify because we don't even realize that there is something wrong. Everything is clear, and then all of a sudden, you don't know where you are or if you are even on the right path anymore. You fight to stay on the road, but it's so frightening that you want to just simply stop. But then you know that that can be dangerous, as you might get run into by something or worse, may never get going again. This is often what it feels like when someone you love leaves you or gives you devastating news or dies unexpectedly. You are so paralyzed that you aren't even sure that what the next step might look like. So you don't take one at all, and you just simply stay stuck until you are either rescued or the storm stops and the path gets cleared again. Then there are the tornadoes and the hurricanes. These cause tremendous damage, and even though we get the warning signs that they're coming, we often don't heed them, and we get caught completely off guard. Or if we do heed them, we can be displaced for long periods of time, and sometimes even permanently. These are the physical storms of heart disease, cancer, or autoimmune disease. We've been told we need to make healthy choices, but we don't like change, and we don't really believe that it can happen to us, so we look the other way and we keep doing what we've always done. Sometimes we want to make the change, but we are so overwhelmed by all the choices that we don't make any changes, and we wait for that storm to hit. Even if we think we are prepared, we really aren't. Sadly, these storms are so devastating that unless we make significant changes in the aftermath of the storm, or in the case of our lives, the bad news, that we may never fully recover. Do you remember the story they used to tell in Sunday school about the two men who built houses along the sea? The first man built his home right up on the sand so he could be close to the waves and hear the sound of the ocean as he slept. The other built his home above the sea on the rock. Then the waves of the storm came, and the first man's home was washed away in the waves. The second man's home stood firm as it was built on solid foundation. At least that's my loose interpretation of it. Actually, the words in Matthew 7:24 through 27 says this. Jesus says, "Therefore, everyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice is like a wise man who built his house on the rock. The rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against that house. Yet it did not fall, because it had the foundation on the rock. But everyone who hears these words of mine and does not put them into practice is like a foolish man who built his house on sand. The rain came, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against that house, and it fell with a great crash." We will only be able to withstand the storms of life if we both listen to Christ and obey his commands. Sadly, most people don't think about their life's purpose or truly where they are headed. They just keep doing what they do without any thought of where the path they are on leads. They don't realize that a storm is coming, and they don't take time to build lasting relationship with Jesus. So many, myself included for many years, are headed for destruction, not because they're being stubborn, but because they aren't thinking about the consequences of their actions. The good news is, as long as we are still living, we still have time to change. We still have time to build what is left of our life on the rock and begin to live in the peace that comes from following Christ. How about you? Are you in a storm? Do you need to make some changes so you can avoid the loss that can happen if you don't come out of the storm? Whether it's staying where you are, but missing out on the truly amazing things that you're being called to, or if it's making a commitment to repair your relationship at home or at work, or if it's finally figuring out what it is that's causing the health challenges you are experiencing, are you ready to get back on the path to your best life? Even if everything seems to be fine, are you willing to risk just letting things ride, or are you ready to be proactive and reach for a truly amazing life that you were designed for? Are you certain that you are using all of your resources to live out your purpose? I believe that until we are truly living in alignment with the life God is calling us to live, the storms will seem more difficult than they truly are. Some will be bigger than others, and some will stagger you with the loss for a time. But all will help you learn and grow if you are willing to look for the good in each situation. They say that other than a few cuts and bruises that looked worse than they actually were, I was virtually unharmed in that tornado all those years ago. I'm fascinated with all this because through my mastery coaching program, I've learned that most of what meaning we make of ourselves is determined by the time we are 3 or 4 years old. What I didn't know until recently was that it is less about what happens to us and more about what we make it mean about ourselves that determines the course of our lives. Needless to say, surviving a tornado can be a traumatic event for anyone, but must have left an 11-month-old extremely confused and frightened. I'm fascinated to think of what I might have taken away from that experience and made it mean about me and my family. Is it possible that surviving that storm helped me to have the courage to weather other storms in my life? Possibly. I like to think that I've been a good student in life and have come away from every stormy period I've endured with something that has helped me through the next round of turbulence. I do find that the times I've been immersed in Bible studies and am actively in the Word has made some of the most trying days of my life seem less traumatic. On the reverse, during those dark days when I would try to do it all on my own, I really struggled with fear and self-doubt. I am certain that knowing I have God's strength to carry me through those storms helped me to be much less reluctant to run the other way when the storm clouds threaten. I love how exploring my past to see why I hold on to some of the limiting beliefs that I do has helped me to see how a storm I experienced over 50 years ago is influencing my ability to help others through their challenges in life. It's exciting to me to see how I can weave all the experiences that have impacted me as a child, a young adult, and now as a mature adult into a way to guide others through their storms in life. The knowing of how our thoughts and beliefs have as much or more to do with our health challenges has been a huge paradigm shift for me, and I'm eager to use my health journey, my life experiences, and my faith together to guide others through the disturbances that they encounter in their lives. I'm excited to discuss the various storms of life and how to deal with them peacefully in the weeks to come. I've created a number of episodes of Reviving Your Soul to go through some of those storms in life and help people to understand how they can get through them with less drama, less stress, and actually be able to claim that peace that comes from being close to God. Next week, I'm really excited to share an interview with a dear friend that I met in my coaching world. She's a certified health coach, but she's also a grief coach and has much to share with you about surviving the loss of a loved one. I hope you will join us next week for that interview, and then in the weeks to come as we discuss troubles in relationships, challenges at work, struggling with body images, and other things like that. I want to thank you for stopping by today. Your time is very precious, and I can't express how much it means to me that you're willing to spend even a small portion of your day with me. I hope you were encouraged by my words today, and if you know of someone else who may be in the midst of their own storm, that you will share this episode with them. I pray that you will live in courageous faith so that you can live your purpose and stay calm in the storms of life. Thank you and have an amazing week. God bless.